Welcome on back to the Fourth and 30 podcast. If you're just now tuning in, go back and check out some of our previous stuff. Last week we had Chris Dewar on. So if you grew up in the area or from around Western Illinois, Southeast Iowa, Northeast Missouri, you know who Chris Dewar is. Go give that a check out. We have some Super Bowl stuff back there. So give us a like on Facebook if you find us there. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We appreciate everything. Leave us a comment of what you want to see and how we want to go forward. We do have some merch available, so if you want to contact one of the four of us, we have masks. Everybody, we're still in this pandemic. We're all still in this together. Kelsey's got his on, so you can contact any of the four of us and find out about that. But this week, we've got some interesting things for you. We're going to be pretty NBA heavy this week. Oh, we got a switcheroo down there from Cody. But we're going to kick things off with about 2 weeks ago, Draymond Green had some interesting things to say about kind of the state of where social media, the media in general, and people lie in terms of what the organization is allowed to do and say and what players are allowed to do and say. So, Kyler, would you like to summarize kind of what he ranted about, and then we'll get into it from there?
Yeah, so I saw this, press conference night that happened and just got to thinking about it. So just to put it in summary, basically Andre Drummond and the Cavs agreed a set because the Cavs are looking to shop Andre Drummond, and they don't want him to get hurt while they're trying to, protect their assets. So Draymond Green got wind of this and had a little rant and, basically went into about the James Harden and how he got destroyed for dogging it his last days in Houston, and how the players take all the backlash, the owners don't take any of it. And another thing he was upset about is how a team can publicly say they want to trade a guy, but when players do it, they get fined or it's against the rules. For example, a couple years ago, Anthony Davis got fined $100,000 for publicly demanding a trade. And I kind of tend to agree with Draymond in that. If the owners can come out and say, "Hey, we're trading this guy," I don't see what the problem is in a player saying, "Hey, I'm unhappy here. I want to go to a different situation." I just don't see the issue with that. But one of the things I will disagree with Draymond Green on is he went into how the players need to stay in shape even if they're going to be traded and how they go through all this sacrifice. Well, my point of view is, you're getting paid millions of dollars to stay in shape. You need to stay in shape or else you'll find yourself out of the league and looking for a job. And as far as the James Harden story goes, getting destroyed for dogging it in Houston, I think it's not very arguable that he kind of just gave up on them. And, that's his choice. And, me as a fan, and I think the fans are partly to blame for where the backlash comes from. James Harden, yeah, he gave a lot to the city of Houston and that fan base. But the fans also, the fans are what makes sports great. The fans and players combination is what makes sports great. And if the fans can't be upset about a player doing something like that, then I don't think you got the millions of dollars. You don't have the interest, and you don't have the money that comes with it. So yeah, I understand where Draymond Green is coming from, and you got to understand the player's side of you. Like I said, I don't think there's any issue with them demanding trades publicly, but they are going to take backlash. The platform that they're on, fans are going to be upset, and they're going to take it out on the players.
Yeah, I agree, Kai, that I think that players should be able to do that. I think it might lead to a environment where you get a whole lot more people doing it if it becomes acceptable to do it in the media, in social media. But the way the owners can act compared to how the players can act just doesn't seem right to me. And that spans through almost all sports, even though we're seeing the example in the NBA right now is, James Harden, that's a whole nother topic. But with Andre Drummond and then Blake Griffin as well being agreeing to sit out when I'm pretty sure the Pistons just told him he was going to sit until, like, they can dictate whether he plays or doesn't play, but yet if he would have demanded a trade after them telling him that he's going to sit, like, it's awful negative on the players for something that really they have no control about, but when they speak out about it, they get the backlash. It just doesn't seem right to me.
So yeah, I agree with most of what you're saying, Kyler. I would say you said it. We're seeing in the NBA now. We kind of saw a little bit of it in the NFL. A team kind of giving up, not so much demanding or a player demanding a trade or saying they're going to trade a player or anything, but you guys were very negative on how the Eagles handled their Week 17 game, and I just don't understand the double standard when it comes to a team is okay to tank, but a player. I mean, a team's blatantly sitting out their best player because they think that he is a good trade asset for them to trade. So they're blatantly not caring if they win the game. But if a player says, "Hey, I want out of this franchise because they're not trying to win," then the player gets all the backlash. We're seeing that with Deshaun Watson right now. Deshaun Watson's getting backlash from everywhere, and I mean, it's definitely double standard. That being said, as far as staying in shape, I'm not saying he has to stay in shape, but if he wants to make money, he better stay in shape. I mean, the fact of the matter is he's a pro athlete and he's done a lot to get there. And if he wants to continue to do that, he should keep doing the things he's done to get there. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to stay in shape this month and expect someone to want you the next year. I mean, that's just not how it works.
That kind of goes with the value of some players, though, with the staying in shape. Is James Harden can be fat and still get traded because of how good he is, and he can get back into shape. When you're talking about a fringe guy who's fighting for an all-star spot, it is important that they stay in shape whether they want to or not. An all-star spot, a roster spot. It is important that they stay in shape, or else, if they're a fringe guy already, 8th, 9th, 10th man off the bench, then they can potentially lose their job. But that wasn't going to happen to James Harden.
Yeah, but so as an owner of a franchise, and I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate here. As an owner of a franchise, you are charged with, running this business. So your business in, like the Anthony Davis case, is the New Orleans Pelicans. That is your business to make sure it goes right. The people that pay for your business to be a thing are the fans. So, they're more or less your shareholders in a way, because they're the ones buying tickets, they're the ones buying merch, they're the ones watching you on TV to get the ad revenue. Like, all of that has to happen for fans. So, if it is in your best business interest to trade somebody, that's in your best business interest. Mm-hmm. Where it might be different for a player, you don't run the business. Like, you work for the business. So for you to come in and demand a trade, I can see how that plays differently to the media, to fans, to owners, because now you're telling your boss what to do. And like, we all have bosses, that doesn't work well. So I think there still might be a little bit of that dynamic coming into it, to where, the owner is in charge of everything that happens right there in that sphere. And when a player tries to break that bubble, I think that's the backlash we see, because they're not in charge of the situation. They're in charge of their own brand. LeBron is his own brand. Harden is his own brand. Like, they're all their own brands, but that business never trumps the franchise you play for, because the franchise you play for will always be more valuable than you.
There's no doubt about it that an owner should do what's best for his franchise. I will never disagree with that. But at the same time, a player's got to do what's best for him. And you can say that it's like our business, where if you tell your boss to do this, it's not going to work well for you. The difference is James Harden's a top 10 player in the NBA, and James Harden can get away with telling his boss what he wants to do. Or Deshaun Watson's a top 10 quarterback. And eventually someone's going to pay James Harden or Deshaun Watson to play football. Deshaun Watson may have to sit out a year and not receive his check next year, but eventually the Texans are going to be like, hey, we're wasting this asset right here just sitting out. We're going to have to do something about it at some point, or else we're just letting this guy go, and that's not doing anything for us. The guy sitting on the bench isn't helping us at all. I get what you're saying. The owner has to do something at some point, but players have a lot more, unless they just don't want to sit out, they just want to play and that's it, then they have a lot more say in it than a lot of people give them the credit for. Because if a player sits out, he's not doing anything for your franchise either. You're just wasting an asset on your bench at that point. He's more valuable to you trading him for something than letting him sit on your bench.
Well, that's the thing, because the players obviously have that right. If they don't want to play, they don't play, but they shouldn't be paid. So they sign the contract. If they don't play, they're out that money, and they always have that option. But we can't get to what's going to be the point of the owners if the players are just in control of everything.
Mm-hmm. Like the McNair family down there for the Texans. I realize they went through some different GMs and they might not be the person that signs off on the contract, but they hired the people they trusted to sign off on those contracts. And Deshaun Watson's team wanted a no trade clause put in the contract. That indicates to your boss, hey, I'm here for the long term. And then a year later you want out. So, I can see the Texans, they'll be fine. Yeah, they're not going to go to the playoffs. They're not going to do anything with him sitting out. But prove your point. Say, hey, you're going to get $0 this year. There, grab some pine, buddy. I've got some right here for you.
I just don't understand.
116.
I don't understand how it's a place of people forget this is a place of employment. Making millions of dollars.
The same thing is at your job. At your job, if it goes to complete shit, excuse me, sorry, Roxy. If your job goes to crap, you're going to look for a new job. Like if you hate your work environment, you're going to look for a new job.
A new job, yes, but not with a different assignment in the same job.
Comparing our jobs to what a professional athlete does are night and day. They're completely different night and day. Sadly, but true. Professional athletes live in a world where they make millions of dollars to play a sport. And yeah, you might say, well, why isn't he playing a sport then? Well, the fact of the matter is that organization has to win games. That's their job, is to win games. And if they're letting their best players sit on the bench, it's not like a normal job where you can go get another manager. There's not another Deshaun Watson for the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson wants to sit on the bench. The Texans have a problem. That's the fact. They can't just go hire another manager.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I also say if they trade him, who are they going to find to replace him?
Well, trading for a bunch of assets. Trading for multiple draft picks to give yourself a shot. If he actually sits out, the Texans are in a worse shape than Deshaun Watson by far. Because they're going 0-16, getting nothing for Deshaun Watson.
How many millions of dollars would he be forfeiting?
If he sat out for 3 years, it'd be $120 million.
It'd be a big blow to both. Both of them would lose. But if Deshaun Watson gets his trade, Deshaun Watson wins, and the Texans are still not winning, unless they get lucky and get.
They're in better shape though than him sitting on the bench.
Yeah, they're in way better shape, especially if they trade for a top pick in this year's draft, and then they could probably get 3 first rounds and a couple of second rounds from him at this point. If you're getting that much value for a guy, then that's better than him sitting on your bench for 3 years.
Maybe, but you're in worse shape than what you would have been if you just get him to stay and be your quarterback, and he plays.
Side note, does anybody have a clue who the Texans' backup quarterback is?
Is it still Tom Savage?
I think it is. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that sounds like a good backup quarterback.
Well, so going back to the Draymond Green thing, so I think after watching his video and decoding it, he's clearly frustrated, and I think some things got said that maybe he didn't fully mean. I think where he has a point, and what I'll agree with, is it is frustrating as a sports star when you take all the backlash, and you don't really see owners taking a lot of backlash, and I think this is where it all stems from. James Harden gets dogged for that's just the reality of the situation, I guess, unfortunately. But me as a fan, if my owners, the team that I follow, is making bad decisions, I'm going to be frustrated with them as well. But you're not going to hear that in the media. You're not going to hear all that. That's really where it all stems from, I think.
Yeah. So
AJ McCarron is the Texans' backup, by the way.
So what brought all this up was trading. So Blake Griffin and the Pistons decided to sit down and take a break and see what trade market there was. Drummond and Cleveland did the same thing. So to transition this, what NBA trades do you guys think either should happen this year or are going to happen? Some impact trades. Do you see anything coming down the pipe?
I don't know. There's quite a few things that can happen. There's a few fringe contending teams that need to make some moves. Nothing I've really thought about. You got a lot of teams in the West that are, I think, going to roll with the roster they have and just hope. The West has about 6 to 7 teams who are, I would say, playoff locks. but maybe not all of them contenders. It depends how high the Suns are on DeAndre Ayton. The way they're playing right now, I probably wouldn't shop him because he looks very, very promising for how young he is or how new he is to the league. But, if they want to go all in on CP3 and Booker this year, they might look for something. You got a few of those bottom teams, like I could see the Pacers trying to shop Miles Turner to upgrade at some other position because I don't think him and Sabonis play real well together. They both space the floor pretty well, so it works out. But the hot commodity right now is Vucevic down in Orlando. Great stretch five that I think he's an All-Star this year, isn't he? Yeah, his first or second All-Star appearance. But I know that he's on the trade block. That could be a big pickup for somebody who's maybe a fringe contender. I can't see somebody like the Jazz or the Lakers or the Clippers or the Sixers picking him up. But, you get one of those middle-of-the-road teams, they might make a run at Vucevic. I think he's a name to watch. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know if we'll have any big blockbusters this year.
I'm thinking this is the year that if the Knicks are going to do something, instead of selling Julius Randle, I would go get like Kristaps Porzingis back. The Mavs have put Kristaps Porzingis on the trade block. They're looking to upgrade there. And there's been talk of a Porzingis for Andre Drummond trade. But if I was the Knicks, go out and get Kristaps Porzingis. Bring him back. I know it ended bad, but if he gets traded, he's going to play.
He is a unique talent when he was in New York because the ball flowed through him a lot. But they were so poor on defense then that when you add a horrendous defending big man into that, it made it even worse. And now they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. So I think it might be a good trade for the Knicks if they can make that happen.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this will make the Knicks contenders for a championship. I don't think it will, but I think it'll be a step in the right direction. If I was the Knicks, I'd go out and get Porzingis and Victor Oladipo. The Rockets have lost 8 straight. They're looking to sell Oladipo, probably P.J. Tucker as well, which P.J. Tucker's more of a role player kind of guy to go to maybe a Lakers, a Philadelphia, or a Clippers team. But Oladipo and Porzingis get 2, potential all-star players with, they're already halfway performing. I think this could be a year that the Knicks win some of their fans back and get some wins.
Another one.
So you guys,
go ahead, Kels.
You guys already mentioned a couple guys. A big name that the last couple of days people have been talking about is DeMar DeRozan. But you mentioned the Knicks. They've been shopping Austin Rivers, but people are saying the Spurs may be trying to trade DeMar DeRozan.
And LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, and LaMarcus Aldridge. I would say the team, the contending team, and we've talked about them a lot the last couple of weeks actually, going back to the whole big man thing. A contending team that needs something added to them if they want to win a championship is the 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually our visitor last week mentioned a shooter for that team. Buddy Hield in Sacramento, if they're trying to trade him, that'd be a good pickup. Kyle Lowry would be a good pickup. But just a shooter for that team that's building around their center would be a big pickup for them. I would say that would be the team I would look out for the most out of the contending teams, just looking for a shooter, not necessarily a DeMar DeRozan type player, a huge name or anything, but somebody who can help spread the floor out there in Philadelphia. Ben Simmons has 4 career 3-pointers. He doesn't really spread the floor too much. So
well, they have a good trade asset if they want to get rid of him with Thibault. Like he's got so much trade potential because of how such a good young player he is. And I keep hearing, like Kai mentioned, the Lowry rumors, Lowry to Philadelphia, one because Lowry wants to go there, being where he's from, and then he wants to play for another contender because Kyle Lowry wants to be a winner. And I don't know how that works out for the Sixers real well. You already have an all-star point guard power forward, but and Lowry's not a knockdown. He's a capable shooter. He's more than capable shooter, but he's not a lights out Seth Curry, Buddy Hield type shooter. So I don't know how well that works out unless Lowry's fine with coming off the bench and leading the second team through the middle of the game, or how that works. But that definitely makes the Sixers better from a star power perspective, but I don't know rotationally how they make that work.
So Kyle Lowry's agent came out and said those rumors weren't true. I don't know if he's just saying that to put a
Kyle
kibosh
Lowry
on
said it on Twitter too that it's not true. So
Yeah, those rumors supposedly are not true for him going to Philadelphia.
I mean, I think that's just Philly fans of every Philly sport.
hopeful.
If anybody grew up in Philadelphia, they're like, oh, they're gonna come back. Like, oh my God, they're coming. So I don't see that happening.
One guy I see a lot of people shopping for that I don't think he'll be traded, because if the Raptors enter a rebuild like it looks like they may, because I think they're starting to think maybe to move on from Siakam as being a centerpiece. I think Van Fleet will get a lot of calls. Now, if I was the Raptors, or Van Vliet, excuse me, I wouldn't trade him, because if you're looking to rebuild, good young guy, I'm sure his contract's fairly cheap, being that he was undrafted. But with you keep him and Siakam around, or maybe try to get Siakam while he's got some trade value left, ship him out. But I see them trying to build around Van Vliet a little bit. You know, he was a fringe All-Star guy this year. He received some votes for it. So but he's a knockdown shooter. I mean, a create your own shot and a spot up guy if somebody is desperate to move from playoff team to contender.
You've been the last 2 episodes, you've been really quick to like knock the Raptors out of the playoff race and put them as solids. You know they're 4th in the East right now, right? They're tied up with the Knicks.
They're 4th in the
Yeah,
East.
but they're still 4th in the East.
Isn't there only 2 above 500 teams in the East right now?
3.
Three.
Yeah.
Bucks, Nets, and Sixers.
Okay, yeah, my point exactly. And I go back on what I said about the Nets. I think it's pretty much, I don't know. Them 3 teams are solid, but after that, it's nobody else stands a chance coming out of that. The Celtics look like an absolute dumpster fire right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not getting calls about Tatum. Why you would want Tatum, I don't know, but I'm sure they're getting calls about Tatum.
Well, a guy I think will definitely be moved, Blake Griffin. Where does he fit? I'm thinking he fits the best with the Heat.
He doesn't fit anywhere anymore.
The Heat are looking for front court, and he's getting older. You know, when he came into the league, he was this high flying, athletic superstar, and now he's more of a isolation shooting 3 ball where he's just not as good.
Yeah.
If there's any team that I think should pull the trigger on him, I'm gonna say it's the Heat, just because they play small and could use the front court help.
They could. That might be a little shot of adrenaline they need. I could see that working out for the Heat. But it just depends what you have to give up for him. You know, the Heat already know they have the pieces to be a championship contender, although they're not making it look real pretty right now. But I don't know. Blake Griffin could screw up a lineup or a rotation pretty bad if he doesn't fit real well.
Yeah. So just to keep things moving along here, we'll transfer to some guys that aren't on the trade block. These are our, MVP candidates for the year for the NBA. It's probably a tighter race than some people want to admit this year. There's no clear front runner. There's some people near the top, but there's no clear front runner. So Kelsey, who do you have who's competing for kind of your top spots there in the NBA MVP vote?
Obviously there's the obvious answers. LeBron James. You've got Joel Embiid. There's some obvious answers here. I would say, and it's homage to our guest last week. One guy that he said he announced last year on Twitter, he could see a route where this guy gets MVP in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Dewar said last week that he could see a route where Spida Mitchell becomes an MVP candidate in the NBA. And I think we have arrived at that point. He's not named at the top. Joel Embiid is actually LeBron's probably the favorite right now. I think Joel Embiid probably should be the favorite right now. But if the Jazz somehow finish first in the West ahead of the Lakers and the Clippers, it's going to be because of Spida Mitchell. And granted, they play great team basketball. It's because of the style of basketball they play. But the leader on that team is Spida Mitchell, and they wouldn't be what they are without him. I would say right now, if the Jazz can keep that 1 seed, that's who I would turn to for the MVP. He's about as far as small guards in the league, maybe Steph Curry, but he's about as tough as guard as there is right now in the league. That's who I would look at right now, is Spider Mitchell.
We've had this discussion in our chat all the time, in that the MVP is almost always given to the best player on one of the top 2 or 3 teams, and understandably so. So if you go by that metric, I think Embiid's the front runner right now. If the season ended today, I would give it to Embiid. With LeBron fairly close, although it's sliding pretty hard for him right now with the Lakers' struggles. Granted, the injuries they're trying to overcome right now, but they continue to lose and are not looking so hot right now without AD and Schroeder. But I agree with Kelsey that Spida needs to be up there. If the Jazz can at the end of the season still be the 1 seed, I think he has a legit argument for it. But then the argument I always make about the best player on the one of the top teams is, if you go by what the title or the award is, the most valuable player, it's hands down LeBron or Steph Curry. You take LeBron off the Lakers right now, they don't win a game. You take Steph Curry off the Lakers, they don't come within 30 points of anybody. So, if you're going by the typical way the award's given out, I have to say Embiid, or my dark horse would be Spida Mitchell, leading the Jazz to the 1 seed in the West.
Well, another guy that fits that conversation is your boy, Dame Dollar. So without Damian Lillard, Portland would be in a very poor position. So Dame's averaging 29.6, 4.4 rebounds, 8 assists a game. He's got Portland sitting at 6 in the West. Like, to go off that metric of it shouldn't be best player on the best team, it should be best player in the NBA. Like, Damian Lillard he's got a fringe shot this year. So, we're halfway through the season, right? So you've got another half to kind of show either expand from here or sink back. These guys that are at the top, Embiid, LeBron, Jokic is in that conversation, Steph and Dame. So, let's say Jokic finished the season just on a tear. He's probably going to work up that list. So with this year, without that clear front runner, because LeBron is in his late 30s, you've got some room to people can sneak up and surprise you. Mitchell can sneak up and surprise people this year, but be on the lookout for these fringe guys. And specifically, I've got my eye on Damian Lillard. Like, he could finish hot, and he was an all-star snub for 10 years, but he could sneak into that MVP conversation.
Yeah, a couple years ago, Dame was a first-team All-NBA and an All-Star reserve, however that works out. But with Dame, once again, the Blazers are fighting the injury bug. His second and third best pieces beside him are hurt, and McCollum's out at least another week, probably 2. Nurkic, I don't even know when his timetable to return is. They're just not going to win enough games. This is the deepest team they've had in years, but they're still not a contender deep when your second and third best players are missing. So until those guys come back, they're going to be a 500 team with Dame shouldering the entire load, and he's just not going to win enough games to be considered. I agree, Carl, that you take Dame off the current Blazers, they're not winning a game either, but he's going to will them to half their games being a win, but he's not going to get considered unless they bump up to the second or third seed.
Yeah, and here we are. It's funny because we're here talking who's going to win the MVP race, and none of us can say for sure because we keep referring to the standings haven't played out. So here's yet another example of where, the most valuable player, however you want to define it, it ends up going to somebody who's, they've got to be at least a 3 seed in their respective conference, probably a 2 or a 1. But here's what else, which goes against the MVP, because Cody, I agree with you. LeBron James, Steph Curry, they're up there. You take them off their team. But another person I would argue that if you take them off their team would not be half as good as what they are is Nikola Jokic. He's averaging 26.7 points. His efficiency rating is 31.33, tops in the league. Do we think the Nuggets are a playoff team without him? Because I don't. And, we started talking about Donovan Mitchell. As much as I would love to say, Donovan, I love watching you play. Here's the MVP trophy. he's not going to win. His numbers do not stack up. He's averaging 24 points per game. He only shoots 42% from the field. His efficiency rating is 19.5. That's just not. I can't see him winning the MVP with those numbers. I think they're just more of a great team. And I talked highly of Spida Mitchell last week, but after looking through his numbers, they just don't stack up. If the season ended today, I would go with Joel Embiid. He's averaging 30 points per game, but the Sixers are 5-5 in their last 10 games. So I don't think after 82 games that's going to stay true. And I think it's going to come, like we've talked about, it's going to come down to which team gets hot, because you got Joker, you got Joel Embiid, and somebody that no one's mentioned so far who has a real good shot is Kawhi Leonard. He's averaging 27 points per game quietly. His efficiency rating's at 27.23, and they're setting at second in the Western Conference. If they somehow find a way to make it to first place in the Western, I could see Kawhi Leonard bringing home the MVP. And Damian Lillard, as much as I would love to give him an MVP trophy too, because he's deserving, I just don't see their team finishing above 5th or 6th in the West, so he just won't win.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then, so one thing that came up today in our group chat, we're going to deviate off course here, Cody, because you said something so profoundly stupid this morning that I've got to let our viewers know.
I was just trolling.
So Cody said, I thought LaMelo would be better than Lonzo, but he may be having a top 3 rookie season ever. And he said that unprovoked on his own accord. And then I said no, and there's receipts for this. He said, how so? He is leading all rookies in every category with a good rookie class. A, I don't think it's a good rookie class. But to even say on a troll, you could have said top 5 or 10 and snuck it, but top 3 is asinine. And here's why. Oscar Robertson, 30.5, 10.1, 9.7. Magic, 18, 7, and 7. Bird, 21, 10.6, and his team won 32 more games than the year before. David Robinson, 24.3, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, 35 more wins than the year before. Duncan, 21 and 11. LeBron, 21, 5, and 6. Hakeem Olajuwon, 20.6 and 11.9. Led all of the NBA in rebounds his rookie year. Alonzo Mourning, 21, 10.3, and 3.5 blocks. Ben Simmons, 15.8, 8.2, and 8.1. So I don't want to hear you ever say that again. And he's having a top 3 rookie season.
Demand an apology.
To go back on what I was saying, that was a troll. I had no disrespect to LaMelo Ball. I was more so trying to act how mainly ESPN / SportsCenter treat LaMelo Ball. LaMelo is having a great rookie year. His team is doing. They're in the playoff race right now. He's finally getting to start. Like he is leading all rookies in all categories. That alone is awesome. But they treat him like he is next Michael Jordan. And there's been too many guys who came in that were like all-star level when they came in the NBA and put up all-star numbers. So no, I don't truly believe that. And I was trying to get somebody fired.
You're only saying that because now we're under the lights of the podcast.
No,
this was your true.
I thought it would get one of the 2 guys over here fired up. I never thought it would get you going, but hey, so what a surprise at 7 a.m.
You didn't even bring up what I said in reply to that. I said that there was a year just a couple years ago that 2 guys might have had a better rookie season in the same year than he's having this year. And I'm going to go look up their stats right now. Luka Doncic, his rookie year just a couple years ago, 21.2 points, 7.8 boards, 6 assists.
Was there even anybody else in that draft class? It was just Luka, right?
Trae Young.
Oh, yeah, he was overshadowed by Luka. I forgot.
He's just trolling me. Trae Young that year was, where is it? I can't find his stats from his rookie year. How am I struggling?
I mean, you had Zion Williamson last year. Like, that's all. Like, it's just, it was asinine that he said it. I just wanted to make sure that he appropriately got called out for being.
Hey, I believe that was
that was a terrible take.
Troll successful.
Well, I'll give you a terrible take right here. as much noise as LeVar Ball has called, I'm not giving any of his sons any awards, so I'm giving it to Anthony Edwards out of Minnesota.
Yeah, they've won 4 games this year or something. He's doing great.
Anthony Edwards is going to be a
He's
stud
not
in the
even.
NBA.
He's not even second.
No, but
What's his name in
he's got-
Sacramento? Is second.
Edwards is averaging
Halliburton.
like 14 a game.
Halliburton in Sacramento is second for sure right now. He's on fire right now. Ever
Yeah,
since we
you
had
got-
that podcast last week, he's torn up this week.
Hey, the power of Chris Dewar.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards is second.
Yeah,
But-
Edwards is averaging 14 points a game. That dude's going to be a stud.
I think Halliburton's 13.
And dunk of the year so far.
Oh,
You know what's funny is, did you see his stat line that game though? He was like 2 for 14
Yeah,
from the
he
field.
didn't do anything all game other than that dunk.
All right. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, I can kind of breathe easy a little bit. We're going to transfer into a segment that we might be bringing back from time to time called Him or Him, or Him versus Him. What did we decide on? Him or him?
Who are you taking? Him or him?
Or her or her.
Good point.
Just saying. But we're gonna do some him or him, and so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick 2 guys from the same sport, generically from the same sport. If it gets to broader topics, it might not be, and then we're just gonna pick one or the other and kind of give a short reason why and move on. So, Cody, would you like to lead us off on him or him?
Yeah, my first one is, would you guys take Jamal Murray or Kemba Walker?
Jamal Murray in a heartbeat, no questions asked. Jamal Murray. We've seen what he does in the playoffs, and his game rises when it matters.
So I'm taking Jamal Murray. I think it's closer than what Kyler's saying. But this is really funny. I want Carl to answer this question because I actually have a him or him with the same player because of another terrible take that Cody had once upon a time. Carl, you go next.
I have a him or him with Kemba in it as well. That's no joke. So that's kind of that might derail this segment a little bit, but I actually would take Kemba. So what I think Kemba brings is a steadiness, and some NBA teams need that. So yes, I understand that Boston is not as good since Kyrie left. I'm not saying Kemba is better than Kyrie. I'm saying I would take Kemba over some of those other fringe players because I think he brings a steadiness. I think he's kind of an overlooked guy, and I think he can play basketball at a high level.
Well, I think that's exactly what Jamal Murray brings.
No.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray, if Kemba averages 20 points a game, it's because he gives you 20 points a game. If Jamal Murray averages 20 points a game, it's because he gives you 31 game, 10 the next. Jamal Murray is a very streaky, hot player. When he goes off, and then other games he's average.
Well, in the playoffs, he's been consistently hot, so that's where I give him the nod. Kemba's got to get to the playoffs to do something.
So my him or him with Kemba in it was Kemba versus Ben Simmons. So do you want a little bit more shooting or a little bit more playmaking?
Defense is the key for me there. I'm taking Ben Simmons. You got the self-proclaimed best defensive player in the league, and I don't know that I give him that, but he's up there. He's good enough to proclaim himself that. So I'm gonna take Ben Simmons. No slight to Kyrie. I would have taken Jamal Murray over Kemba too. Yeah, over Kemba. I would have taken Jamal Murray as well, but and that's no slight to Kemba. Kemba's a great player, but I'm taking Ben Simmons.
That's a very difficult question, Carl, and I think it just depends on who you have around you on the rest of your team. Now, if I'm taking somebody to start a franchise, I'm taking Ben Simmons. If I'm taking somebody who, I've already got a good squad, I need a point guard who's unselfish and can knock down the 3 ball, I'm taking Kemba Walker.
I like Kyler's answer. I would take Kemba. I'm obviously, you guys know how I play the game of basketball. I'm of the belief that your guard should be able to hit an open shot, and I don't believe that Ben Simmons can hit an open shot to save his life. He has 4 career 3-pointers or something like that. It just irritates the heck out of me. But he's a great defensive player. He's very unselfish. He'll make people around him better. I'm not saying that Ben Simmons is not a good player. Ben Simmons does what he does very well. He does what he does at the top level. but there's just things that I think hinder his game.
We're comparing point guard to point guard right now, but when you factor in a little deeper, with Kemba, you're getting a great point guard, great shooter, unselfish player. With Ben Simmons, you're getting a guy who can play 4 positions, who can defend 4 positions, and that's
definitely more versatile.
Yeah, and all these are meant to be tough, debatable him or hims. So if we were to say put such and such player on the Miami Heat, your answer might be completely different than if you put him on the Detroit Pistons. But if you're taking a generic team, then yeah, I'm taking Ben Simmons.
So my him or him, everyone in this group chat will realize why I'm saying this in just a second. We actually ranked our point guards to rank this guy, and Cody ranked someone ahead of him that was absolutely insane. Drew Holiday or Jamal Murray?
Do we not forget what teams were offering for Drew Holiday just a couple years ago?
I'm taking Jamal Murray and here's why. Drew Holiday I would consider more of a role player than a guy that can go get his own shot, create for other teams. Drew Holiday is a great defender. He won Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. And he does a lot of the little things that role players do, but he's not a guy that you're going to ask to go out and get 25, 30 points. I'm taking Jamal Murray.
I'm also taking Jamal Murray, and I don't feel the need to discuss that.
Cody, I didn't mean to pile on picking on you, dude.
Oh, I'm taking that
he is Googling hard
Holiday.
right now.
I'm taking Drew Holiday all day.
Know,
he's looking up stats. I see his screen changing in his face.
Yeah, well.
Drew
Right,
Holiday
he's looking up.
Does
he's
do a
looking
lot
up
of
those
things well.
stats. Kyler, what's
Right.
your him?
So I've got here. And don't factor into their age or how many years they have left. Just who would you take right now? Julius Randle or Zion Williamson?
Right now, Julius Randle. I feel like right now, not factoring in future, not factoring in anything else, Julius Randle is playing better basketball.
I'm taking Zion. Zion knows what he does. Now, I don't watch Knicks basketball because I don't watch the Knicks play, but I've watched enough highlights and enough videos from outlets. Julius Randle's game is not very pretty. It's kind of forced at times, and that's kind of what he has to do in New York. So I guess it's not necessarily a knock on him, but Zion knows what he does well. He does what he's asked. He plays well within a system. And the Pelicans run their system around him, so it makes it look easier for him. But I'm taking Zion.
So this is going to sound really crazy. Zion is one of the most efficient players literally to ever play the game, how he's playing right now. And that's not an exaggeration. He's literally one of the most efficient players to ever play the game right now. That being said, right this second, Julius Randle can do more than Zion Williamson can. Julius Randle is one of the best slashers in the game. Honestly, he can hit a shot. He can create a shot. Right this second, I feel like Julius Randle can do more than Zion's. It's a very tough question. I would take Randle barely. Going forward, everyone here would take Zion. Zion's efficiency is insane. It's crazy how efficient he is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna disagree a little bit. I'm going Zion Williamson, and here's why. Yes, Julius Randle might do more right now, but I'm looking at the situations they're in. Zion's playing with Brandon Ingram, who's also averaging almost 26 points per game. Julius Randle is the main offense for the New York Knicks. He is their offense. You have a few guys averaging 13, 14 or whatever, but Zion, like Cody said, he knows his role. One of the things I noticed about him early on at Duke is how unselfish he was. He didn't care about scoring the points. I wouldn't have known this if I didn't look at it. Zion's averaging 25.5 points per game, and he is shooting 62% from the field. So if their roles were reversed, I think Zion would be averaging closer to 30 on the Knicks team.
Yeah, have you seen the heat maps from Zion?
Are they all dunks?
They're all layups and dunks. They're all just right there.
Zion is a sneaky good shooter too. As
you have to
his shot is.
Yeah, you have to respect it.
You have to respect it.
So here's
a decent shooter. He's not a
Well, right.
really
But
shooter. He's
looking at
decent.
his shot, you think, oh, don't ever shoot that again. But
Yeah.
it goes in at a decent clip.
So to go on about Zion just a little bit, I was talking to Kai about it earlier this week. The Pelicans came out and said their coaching staff came out and said we're looking to use Zion more as a facilitator to get him involved a little more because he's very unselfish and he's a good passer for a big guy. And I just tuned into 10 minutes of the end of the Pelicans game there, and I don't remember who they were playing. As soon as they got it to half court, Zion came up and got the ball, and I believe he had two assists in like 5 possessions. So they're trying to literally run their offense through Zion anywhere they can, and he's still succeeding in that. You know, I was a huge Zion critic when he was in high school, saying he's just a guy overpowering little bitty kids.
A bowling ball.
And just dunk. I mean, his athletic ability is like something I've never seen before for having that frame that he has. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's a monster in high school, and in college he's probably going to run and jump just as well as anybody else, and so he's going to do well in college as well, but it won't translate to the NBA, and I stand 100% corrected. He finds a way to make it work, and he is such an opposing figure that it even works against the grown men in the NBA.
The ironic thing is Randall and Williamson are basically the same exact player, and Randall's just a little smaller and a little less athletic.
A little more skilled, I would say.
Both left-handed. Yeah.
Randall's a little more skilled.
Yeah.
All around.
Will you-
But I actually,
Go ahead.
this hurts to say as a North Carolina fan. I told Kyler when Zion was at Duke, I don't know that at the college level we ever saw a guy who could do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted and was so unselfish about it. At Duke, he pretty much could score when he wanted, but he let the game come to him. And at times that might have hurt a little bit because he probably should have taken over a couple of times. But I've never seen a guy who is so skilled and lets the game come to him so well. He just lets it flow into him, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, so that's where we'll leave you this week on this episode of 4th and 30. We appreciate all the support. Be sure to like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. You know, you can tweet at us. We can start some polls, get some debates going back and forth. We appreciate everything. Don't forget, we do have masks. If
Buy
you
our
guys
merch.
you can buy our merch, 4th and 30 podcast masks. And with that, be good out there. Tell your grandma, and we'll see you next week.